You've already made the decision. You made it hours ago, and yet here you are, turning it over one more time, looking for the angle you must have missed. You replay the conversation from this afternoon, not because you said anything wrong, you know you didn't, but because there might be a meaning underneath it you failed to decode, a pause that meant something, a word someone chose too carefully. So you run it back, and when that gives you nothing, you run it forward instead into every way tomorrow could go. You lie in bed constructing arguments for situations that will never happen. You rehearse the message before you send it, then rehearse the reply you imagine you'll get, then rehearse your response to that. You can hold 6 possible futures in your head at once, and you treat every one of them as urgent. People tell you to relax, to stop overthinking it, as if you hadn't already noticed, as if the noticing weren't its own exhausting layer sitting on top of everything else. And the strangest part is that none of it feels like a choice. You're not indulging, you're working. It feels like vigilance, like responsibility, like the tax you pay for being someone who actually pays attention. You're convinced that if you think hard enough for long enough, you'll finally arrive at certainty, and that then, only then will you be allowed to act. Here is what is actually happening, and it has very little to do with weakness or with worry as some flaw in your character. Your brain is running a simulation engine. Every nervous system does this to some degree. It models possible futures so the body can prepare for them. But in a brain wired like yours, with high openness and unusually low latent inhibition, the filters that are supposed to tag most information as irrelevant simply don't fire the way they do in other people. You take in more. You catch the detail nobody else flags, the small contradiction in someone's story, the variable the room ignored. That same uncautious openness that makes you perceptive is the thing flooding your system right now. 2 structures are carrying most of this. The default mode network, the circuitry that switches on when you're not focused on a task, the part responsible for self-reflection and for imagining other people's minds and other moments in time, and the prefrontal cortex, your center for planning and evaluation. In most people, these quiet down once a problem is solved. In yours, they stay coupled and over-reaved, still running long after the answer has been found. None of this is a malfunction. It is an old safety mechanism doing precisely what it evolved to do. For most of human history, the person who simulated the predator, the failed hunt, the social misstep before any of it happened, that person lived. Rumination kept our ancestors alive. Your hardware is tuned for a world of constant physical threat, and it is treating an unanswered message like a movement in the grass. The problem isn't that the simulator is broken. The problem is that it was never built with an off switch. Picture it like this. There's a flight simulator, a full enclosed pod, the kind pilots train inside, mounted on a circular rail. You're strapped into the cockpit. Your hands are locked on the yoke. The screen in front of you renders an approach to a runway, and your whole body is committed to landing this thing. But the rail is a closed loop. There's no station on it, no platform, no off-ramp. It only goes around. The walls of the cockpit aren't windows. They're floor-to-ceiling instruments gauges, dials, live feeds, every reading you could possibly want. And you've learned to trust them completely. When the landing doesn't feel certain, your instinct is to gather more data, check another dial, pull in one more variable, so the walls give you more. And here is the quiet cruelty built into the design. More data never shortens the approach. More data adds variables. Every new reading makes the calculation longer, the loop wider, the landing further off. You watch the runway fill the screen. You're almost down. And at the last second, the screen flashes 2 words, insufficient data, and the whole simulation resets. Back up to altitude. Begin the approach again. Knuckles white on the yoke, you believe, every single time that one more run will finally buy you enough certainty to touch down. It never does. The runway is rendered. It was never real. There is nothing under those wheels to land on because you are not flying anywhere. You are circling, and the entire time there is exactly one real object in that room. Not a gauge, not a screen, a physical exit hatch set into the side of the pod, a lever resting beside it. It's unlocked. It has been unlocked the whole time. The door was never the thing keeping you in. You've simply never taken your hands off the controls long enough to reach it. So how do you actually get out when the loop feels like the responsible thing to be doing? You don't get out by flying a better approach. That's the trap restating itself in your own voice. You cannot outthink a system whose entire function is more thinking. You get out by changing what your body is doing because the loop runs on cognition and it cannot survive contact with action. Start with the throttle, not the thoughts. The simplest interruption is physical and immediate. Stand up, change rooms, run cold water over your wrists. Take one slow breath where the exhale runs longer than the inhale. This isn't a relaxation trick. A longer exhale signals your nervous system to step down out of threat mode, which directly lowers the fuel feeding the simulator. You're pulling power on the engine, then set a base case, the one thing your loop is missing. Anyone who writes a function that calls itself has to define an exit condition, a point where the process is forced to stop and hand back an answer. Your overthinking has none, which is exactly why it runs forever. So you impose one from the outside. Give the decision a hard boundary, 10 minutes or 3 options or a single sheet of paper. When the boundary is reached, you commit to whatever you've got, not the perfect answer, the available one. The limit does the stopping your brain refuses to do on its own. Next, demote the data. Catch the moment you reach for one more input, one more article, one more opinion, one more replay of the memory, and see it for what it is. That is not research. That's another lap. Past a certain point, more information doesn't raise your clarity, it only multiplies your variables. Say it plainly, even out loud. I'm collecting data so I don't have to decide. Naming it breaks the illusion that it was ever productive, and then the only move that genuinely ends it. Take the smallest possible physical action, in the real world, toward the thing you're circling. Not the whole plan. Send the one sentence. Make the one call. Write the first line. The instant you produce a single piece of motor output, you've stepped off the rail and onto solid ground, and the simulation, which only ever existed to delay this exact moment, simply stops. The pod halts mid-frame. You unbuckle and climb down. The floor was there the whole time. Action doesn't arrive after certainty. Action is the thing that produces it. But stepping off the rail once is not the same as staying off it. Because the moment you do take that small action, a new problem tends to appear almost immediately, quieter than the loop you just left, and far more difficult to see. You'll act once, feel the relief, and then catch yourself drifting straight back into the cockpit on the very next decision, as though the hatch had quietly locked behind you. The loop doesn't disappear, it waits, and there is a specific reason your brain pulls you back into that seat the moment the stakes rise again. A hidden reward it has been collecting all along, every single time you choose the simulation over the solid ground. That mechanism, the one quietly reopening the pod door behind you, is what we take apart next. It's on the screen now.